Welcome back to the Extra Point. Welcome back to yet another episode of the Extra Point. The college football season is about 10, 11 weeks in at this point, and now we're starting to get into the college football playoff rankings. The second edition just came out on Tuesday, and I'm joined by Ava and Adam to discuss the rankings. So guys, second edition, there's obviously some big-time upsets over the weekend with Georgia falling to Ole Miss, and they dropped from number 3 in the rankings to number 12. So I just want to hear some thoughts, initial thoughts on the rankings. Is there anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, quick over to the Georgia one. I mean, obviously they were number 3 team in the country. Now they're a team that, with how this playoffs rankings now work with it, not necessarily being the top 12, obviously having 5 conference champions in, they're out of the playoff entirely.
Yes.
They're now out of the, they're the first team out, although they could get a chance to obviously very easily get themselves back in with a big matchup at home on Saturday against Tennessee. That's going to be a big one for both sides. I think the loser of that game has a serious shot of missing the playoff. I don't know if you agree with me on that, Frank.
I do. Because here's my thing with the Georgia ranking. They arguably have one of the best wins in the country at number 3 Texas.
Yeah.
And they're down.
The only team that realistically has a better win than them is Oregon over Ohio State if you look at the rankings.
Yes. But I think Georgia's down there because of the eye test. I just don't, they don't look good. They don't look good as a team. And I think that's why they're at 12. I don't agree with it necessarily. I think they should be higher. I think you can argue they're ahead of Miami, even though Miami only has 1 loss. You can maybe make an argument for Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is one of the best teams in the country on paper and based on the eye test, but Notre Dame has one of the worst losses of these teams in the top 10.
Yeah, obviously that one over. I mean, that week 2 loss versus Northern Illinois is still going to come back and hurt you. I know our at-home Notre Dame fan here, Nolan Spur, he's not too happy about that one. He still isn't.
Nolan just got his wisdom teeth removed today, so Nolan, we're
with you on
We're with you on this, even though we're talking some not nice stuff about your team here.
We didn't get any funny videos.
Yeah, we're waiting.
We're still waiting for it, Nolan.
But other things that I think are interesting, the best story in college football this year, far and away, Indiana at number 5 in the country. This has been a team that has had a god-awful football program for years and years. The COVID year, they were pretty good, though. They were pretty good.
They had a freshman quarterback by the name of Michael Penix. You might know him now.
Might know him.
Might know him.
In the top 10, controversial.
Got to a national championship last year.
But Indiana, they bring in this new coach, and he has delivered. Former coach at JMU, and now he has Indiana at number 5, undefeated. They have a bye week this week before they go into a game against Ohio State, a top 5 matchup.
Yeah.
That is a top 5 matchup.
I got to say, Indiana really surprised me, but I think that they always had, a good move since that new coach. So I'm excited to see where they go,
Yeah, because you can argue even if they lose to Ohio State, they'll still make the playoff as an 11-1 Big Ten team. Yes, that's the schedule. They're playing some of the worst teams in the Big Ten, but still, an 11-1 record in the Big Ten. You'd argue one of the 2 power conferences in college football. It's pretty impressive.
If you look at it, they're unbeaten right now. They're playing Oregon in that Big Ten title game. Now it would be December 7th, and that's going to be one to watch as well. I think that game, I think you said it well, that game against Ohio State to me is everything for Indiana. I think if we go back to Georgia a little bit, it is kind of the eye test. We look at Indiana's strength of schedule. It hasn't necessarily been the true top Big Ten teams. They're not playing Oregon. They're not playing Penn State.
Right.
Also this is a team that we look at it, they were picked 17th in the Big Ten, which is kind of an interesting thing to say now in 2024. That's where we've gotten to now. We have 18 teams in the Big Ten. The only team they were ranked ahead of was their own in-state rival in Purdue.
Yeah, and Purdue is 0-8 in Big Ten play.
Purdue is winless, and they've only won 1 game, and I'm pretty sure it was against an FCS school.
Yes.
So, but nonetheless, I think what Indiana's done has been great. They brought in a coach. He had a ton of success with the Dukes at JMU, and he's translated it well into the Big Ten. And this is the most wins in a season all time for college football for the Hoosiers, which are more of a basketball school.
Yeah, and Indiana, that Indiana-Ohio State game, the winner of that game likely goes to play Oregon in the Big Ten.
I think they definitely go to play Oregon.
Yeah.
Unless Ohio State or Indiana somehow lose a game in there.
That game,
Which, looking at what they have
yeah.
left, seems very unlikely.
Indiana plays Purdue, besides Ohio State. Purdue, the worst team in the Big Ten this year. I don't see them losing that game, but you never know. You never know in college football.
Anything can happen,
Yeah.
especially because it's rivalry week.
Yes. And there's another thing in these rankings that I wanted to discuss a little bit. I'm being very picky with this, but I had to address it because it's ridiculous. So I look at the teams at number 21 and number 22. South Carolina is ranked number 21 in the country, and LSU is ranked number 22. They're both 6-3. They had the same exact record. You might be wondering, Frank, why do you have a problem with this? I mean, it seems normal, right?
That's what I'm wondering, Frank.
Yeah, I think we are.
Here's the issue. In week 3, these two teams played each other.
They had college game day there for
College
that
game
week.
day was there. Yeah, it was a big game.
Yeah.
And you think based on these rankings that South Carolina won that game. They didn't. No. They didn't win the game. LSU won the game on a great comeback.
Yeah, they were down 17 early.
And LSU is ranked behind South Carolina.
The only reason I could see this, and looking at kind of how these teams have played in the last few weeks, South Carolina, they have, their last 2 games, they have a home win over A&M, and they've gotten a win over a surprisingly good Vandy team on the road.
Yes.
And then LSU is another team that we've looked at. Obviously, last week, they put up a complete dud against Bama.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why I could see this, but it does surprise me, especially when you think about really how the committee has worked. They've looked at, obviously, past matchups to see where teams sit. And especially with 2 teams being next to each other in South Carolina and LSU, I think if there's a spot or 2 in between them, this is a different conversation.
Yes, I agree, but
I think if like
right
South Carolina's 20, LSU's 22, we're having a different conversation. But yeah, I think LSU probably is the team that's better. They're the team that went on to win on the road in an electric atmosphere in Columbia.
Yes.
And yeah, so that's my reason for taking the Tigers over the Gamecocks.
And another reason why I have a problem with it is if you look a little bit up these rankings right here, at number 16 and number 17, you have Kansas State and Colorado. Kansas State beat Colorado, and Kansas State is above Colorado. You know, that makes sense. I would argue, though, that Colorado has looked better in recent weeks than than Kansas State.
Yeah, they played Kansas State week
It was like in October,
3.
early October.
I think it was September.
Yeah, it
Might have
might
been
have been September. Yeah,
It was early in the season.
It's just inconsistent, and the committee has shown this they've been doing this for 10, 11 years now. Yeah. Consistent inconsistency.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
We can go back to last year with
We can go back to last
year with the 2-loss Bama versus Florida State.
Yeah.
We can go back to that debate all over again.
But that was different.
That's a different situation, obviously.
That was,
but
that was
different.
unforeseen circumstances.
Yes.
With Jordan Travis's injury, and I still don't.
Who's on the Jets now?
I still don't agree with that at all. I still think Florida State should have been in the playoff. But that is a topic for another day. We are focused on this year with these rankings. And another thing that I want to talk about: BYU, undefeated.
Crazy.
Number 6 in the country.
Beating Tennessee, that's just.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about that, you mentioned that they did jump ahead of Tennessee this weekend.
They did jump ahead of Tennessee,
and it confused me. It did. It confused me because BYU.
To me, the only reason would be an unbeaten versus a 1-loss team.
Yes, I do agree, but BYU struggled in that Utah game. You could argue they got bailed out by the refs of that game.
And a game-winning 44-yard field goal.
I get it's a rivalry. It's the first time they played each other since 2021. It's a big deal.
First time they played each other in a long time in conference,
but
too.
Utah was on a 4-game losing streak. They are not a good team.
They're also on a backup quarterback. They don't have Cam
Rising.
Rising.
Out for the season. He might play his 8th year next year because he's been injured pretty much every year.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Those rankings are. It's crazy to me, but we'll see. But that is going to do it for this segment. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you for the next one.
It is officially the witching hour in the 2024 NFL season, where fantasy football seasons could go from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. I am not Scott Hansen, but I am Dean Heidel, and today I'm joined here with Ian and Frank. Today we're going to be talking some fantasy football. A lot's going on here in Week 11. Some good waiver wire pickups for you guys, some stock downs, some trending up players. Let's waste no time. Let's jump straight into it. Guys, who are some waiver wire pickups, some sleeper guys that we have in mind?
So there's one guy. I think he's like available in like about 50% of leagues.
Okay.
If you haven't picked him up yet, he's a league winner. Cedric Tillman.
Yeah, you took the
wide
words out of my
receiver
mouth.
for the Cleveland Browns. He's been getting like 9-10 targets a game ever since Amari Cooper got traded. Him and Jameis Winston have a good connection. If he's still available in the league, in your league, must add league winner.
I couldn't agree more. Like, this is a potential, this is a week 1-2 last year Puka Nacua type player that I really do think. I actually just picked him up in my Dynasty League, and I'm beyond happy I did. He dropped 18 in his first game without Amari Cooper, 29 points in the following week, and then another game in which he had over 15. Last week they were on a bye, but I am so excited to see it. Third-round pick, guy who's expected to have more of a role now in Cleveland. I can't wait to see what that guy can do. I really can't.
Yeah, he's in the slot too. That just means more targets, more
Exactly.
receptions.
And
That's
now-
exactly what you want in fantasy too.
And now with Jameis Winston throwing the ball instead of Deshaun Watson, a guy who's he's going to air the ball out. You know Jameis is going to feed that number one wide receiver like he did with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin out in Tampa Bay. So you know you're going to get the receiver productivity out of him. I could not agree any more with you. Guy that I want to point out as well, Jaylen Warren. He's someone that I feel like a lot of people drafted and then dropped.
Yeah.
But I think specifically for this week, Jaylen Warren can make a huge impact. The Steelers are playing the Ravens this week. Obviously, great run defense from the Ravens, a team that you're really going to have to look out and try and get the receiving backs more involved in the game. Najee Harris, not your typical receiving back. Jaylen Warren is. Really the only way I can see the Steelers going through the Ravens and beating them, kind of getting that short yardage situation. You're not going to beat them over the top. The Ravens have great safeties. So really, if they can extend that ground game, I think Jaylen Warren is going to get a ton of targets in that game. I think the receivers in Pittsburgh are going to get locked down. I think they're going to double George Pickens. I really like Jaylen Warren this week. I really, really do. Yeah. Another guy I want to bring up, Cam Akers. Not really too sure what's going on with Aaron Jones. He did injure his ribs last week, so he is questionable to play. He was questionable in practice, limited participant this Wednesday. With that being said, no one really knows what's going to go on with him. Cam Akers, Super Bowl champion, one of the fastest guys to ever recover from torn Achilles.
Yeah.
So cool story about Cam Akers. That being said, guys, who are someone that kind of stocks trending down, not really as high on as we once were in the start of the season?
I'll tell you a guy who I'm a little disappointed in, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that's an obvious disappointment, but I picked him up as a backup QB. I thought, Lamar is going to be out in the 14th, so I'll use him. But the way things are going for the Jets, I might have to pick up someone else.
Ian, you want to tell us your story about Aaron Rodgers from last year?
No.
He drafted Aaron Rodgers in what round? 4? 5?
I was predominantly new to fantasy. I thought Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson were going to dominate, but things happened in the first few plays, and the rest is history. But I can tell you this. The DeVito G. Geldings are 9-1.
Oh,
they are the best team in our league so far.
They are.
They beat you, and they beat many other people, and they will continue to be the best in the league.
Tell us a little about that team.
He beat me up.
I could tell you everything about this team.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
Speaking of waiver wires, I picked up Tyrone Tracy because I needed.
Oh, that's a great pickup.
It was a great pickup.
Fantastic pickup.
He's 8-1. How do you get him on waivers? Did he
So-
have the lowest waiver priority?
So Pacheco got hurt around the end of the Bengals game, which was the second or third week.
Yeah.
I think so.
So I needed a running
I
back.
should pick him up earlier in the season.
I picked him up. I was like, you know what? It's him and Singletary going back and forth, but
Yeah.
Tyrone Tracy's developing into a starting running back. You know,
Yeah.
he's doing really good so far. He's definitely gotten a lot of points for me, but I'll tell you the MVP of my team, Lamar Jackson.
He's been pretty
He
good.
is
He's the MVP of football right now.
He is the MVP of football. He's been dominating every single game. I'll tell you another high pointer, George Pickens. He's underrated. I'm telling you, he's underrated.
Ever since Russ transitioned to the starter, he's been a lot
He's been
better.
great.
Yeah.
He's been very good. Not this week, though. I think he's going to have a down week.
Really?
Against the Ravens. I do.
I can see it.
I would say Zay Flowers has been on and off. Same with Lad McConkey. You know, they're the on and off receivers where you start them, they don't do so
I
good.
get
You
that.
put them on your bench, they do amazing.
I mean, listen, it's a solid team. I really can't say anything. And I completely, I say this on camera, I completely fleeced you for Amon-Ra St. Brown, or excuse me, A.J. Brown.
A.J. Brown,
In
talking
our
about
league.
that trade, I was down bad for a running back. You know, Isaiah Pacheco was hurt. Ramondre Stevenson is not a bad running back, but you want a guy with, you just needed a running back, and I didn't have anyone. So I was like, A.J. Brown, he's a valuable guy. I could probably get 3 or 2 players off of him. So unfortunately, I think A.J. Brown was my round 2 pick. And I gave him to this guy.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And in exchange, it was him and the Cowboys tight end, Jake Ferguson, in exchange for Dalton Kincaid, Rashad White, and DJ Moore. And 2 out of those 3 people have been terrible. I mean, actually, no, I'll give Dalton Kincaid a pass because he's been doing good as well. But DJ Moore has been an upsetting surprise to me.
Yeah, that's another player that I do want to highlight here in kind of like the trending downward players. DJ Moore has had a major disappointment of a season.
Yeah.
I really thought that Bears offense was going to be more special this year, more dynamic, but Caleb Williams just has not really shown that. He's been overthrowing his receivers a lot, looks very uncomfortable in the pocket. The Bears' O-line has not been great, but Bears just fired their offensive coordinator. Maybe we see more of that. I don't really think too much change until Eberflus is gone. But that being said, I mean, really, who knows? I mean, there's so much talent on the Bears offense. Like, people just casually forget they have, like, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze they drafted, DJ Moore, of course.
It's a lot of
DeAndre
talent on
Swift
that
is a
team.
good
It's
running
just
back as well.
they can't do anything with it.
They really, really can't. But before we wrap things up, what are some players on the uptrend? 2 guys that I have immediately in mind. Biggest uptrend, without question, the past couple of weeks is Travis Kelce.
Yeah, he's
Really?
been,
Without
he's
a
been,
doubt. I mean, this guy
Yeah.
had a horrible start to the season. People were saying he was washed. Andy Reid came out in a presser and said, yeah, we're trying to scheme him open, but so many players are doubling him. Rashee Rice goes out with injury. I almost said the Steelers. Chiefs don't really have that dominant one receiver. Xavier Worthy hasn't really done too much, so everyone's been really doubling Kelce. But now, finally, they're starting to get Kelce involved in that pass game, and he looks absolutely lethal.
My guy is the guy you were talking about, Tyron Tracy. He's the clear-cut RB1 in New York now, and he's going to put up, I'm expecting like 15 a week.
And the Giants can't even pass anymore, so they have to rely on the run game to get ahead and, get those yardage.
Yeah.
So I think Tyrone Tracy is going to have an even greater impact on that team.
Yeah. 100%.
Tyrone Tracy has been absolutely terrific. A great pickup if you somehow have not gotten him already. But that just about does it for today's fantasy football segment. I wish all of you the best of luck in your fantasy seasons, except for Ian, him in his league.
Come on.
So, but that being said, we are going to wrap things up here. Best of luck to you all, and we will see you all in the next shoot.
Welcome back to the Extra Point. If there's any player in the NBA that has met as many mountains and valleys as anyone, I think we could all agree on one person, and that is Anthony Davis. I'm Adam, and I'm joined here by John, Dean, and Benicio, and we're going to dive right into the ups and downs of the career of Anthony Davis. So we're going to start in high school. We're going to go way, way back, pre-NBA, all that. He came out as the clear-cut #1 high school recruit on basically every recruiting board in the class of 2011. He ends up committing to John Calipari in Kentucky over Ohio State and Syracuse. And John Calipari, Benicio, this is the reference I'm talking about, we were talking about a moment ago. He compared him to Marcus Camby with his lanky frame, his lengthy 6'10", 200-pound frame at the time, and as well as his elite shot blocking ability, which was clearly on demonstration in his freshman year at college. In the 2011-2012 season, he became just the second freshman, the first one being Kevin Durant, to win the Naismith and the Wooden Award, the top award winners for college basketball, while averaging 14 points, 10 rebounds, and almost 5 blocks a game. It was also the Defensive Player of the Year for nationally in college basketball as well. And most importantly, his team would go on to win a national championship that year. And with all that being said, his draft stock rose high to the point he was probably what many thought could be considered of as a generational prospect. He would go first overall to the New Orleans Hornets, Benicio, not your Charlotte Hornets.
I wish.
They were still the Bobcats at the time. And also in the offseason, he made some history, became the youngest player in the professional era to play for Team USA in the Olympics and won a gold medal at just 19 years old. So he surpassed LeBron James. So let's
Do you think Noah Lyles considers him a world champion?
You think
I think now he's got it, right? I mean, they are the world champions now.
They are the
Multiple-time world champions.
Multiple-time world
Better.
We are better. Interesting. But we're going to move on now to his rookie season with the New Orleans, not Charlotte, Hornets.
Look, we got screwed out of the first pick. We won 7 games.
Yeah, the Hornets, the Bobcats,
But they
did win
somehow
7 games that year.
we didn't win the lottery. There's
That's,
a lot of conspiracies about that, because like, to be fair, the New Orleans Hornets were bankrupt at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a weird time to be a fan.
It was a weird time to be a Charlotte Hornets fan. You were what, probably 7 years old at the time?
Yeah.
Something like that.
And a New Orleans Hornets fan for that
And a New
matter.
Orleans fan. So you got to see Anthony Davis get drafted number 1 overall. Nonetheless, let's move on to his rookie season where the first real issue arises. He has an ankle injury. He misses 26 games that season. But nonetheless, he still makes the all-rookie team. A lot of those games being missed in the second half of the season. Loses out on the Rookie of the Year award to a sharpshooter, a guy who's also had himself a very nice NBA career, in Damian Lillard. And then the next few years, his career kind of rises to the point where he becomes one of, if not the best power forward in the NBA. He goes on to lead the NBA 3 different times in 5 seasons in blocks. At one point in there, has the most points per game he has in a season, averages 28 a game. And then continues to go up until 2017, the All-Star game. He makes history in the All-Star game, puts up 52 points and 10 rebounds, wins the MVP easily in that game, and gets onto his first All-NBA defensive first team. So as that goes on, injuries continue, some minor bumps and bruises here and there. But however, there are some struggles with now being called the New Orleans Pelicans, which happens like somewhere in there. And all of a sudden, they've only made the playoffs twice in his first 6 seasons. And when they're 22-28 on January 29th, 2019, in the middle of the season, just before the trade deadline, Anthony Davis requests a trade from the New Orleans Pelicans. They tried to bring in some pieces to help him. Most notably, another guy in the front court, DeMarcus Cousins, who got injured, I believe it was an Achilles injury. He ended up missing most of the second half of the 2018 season. And really, it was just not a good time in New Orleans. He didn't see much of a future there. They hadn't won a playoff series, and
They did win that year against the Blazers.
They did win that year.
Drew Holiday locked up Dame.
I think they swept the Blazers.
They did.
sweep the Blazers.
Didn't they?
I did forget about that.
I predicted that upset.
Predicted an upset. 14-year-old Benicio. You're what, about 14 at that point, Benicio, probably?
Yeah, like I was born in 03, so I was like 15.
Okay.
Everyone else, all my friends said they have no chance at winning. I was the only
That
one.
was all-star.
I had
Drew Holiday
faith in
there
AD.
as well. Yeah.
They lost to Golden State that year, I
They
believe,
did lose Golden
correct?
State that year.
I remember
But nonetheless, they were struggling. So he requests a trade. It doesn't get done. He gets fined at one point for it, for making it public, which obviously the NBA gave him a $50,000 fine for that.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, they
that
gave him
was
a
huge. Everyone was said he was going to the Lakers, but then the whole tampering thing happened.
Yeah, the whole tampering thing did happen. But let's move on to now the 2019 offseason. Right before the 2019 NBA draft, when Anthony Davis gets what he wants. He gets a trade to the Los Angeles Lakers to team up with arguably one of the greatest players in NBA history in LeBron for Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram, and 3 firsts, which one of those that year was the number 4 pick that year.
Knicks legend.
Knicks legend Josh Hart. Big Baller Brand legend Lonzo Ball.
And never forget what LeVar said about the Lakers trading his son.
Biggest mistake?
Oh, I remember
Yeah,
that.
he did.
I
Biggest
do remember that.
mistake.
He was really upset about
He said
that.
He said they were never going to win another championship.
He said the Lakers
and
were never going to
look
win.
what that
look
is.
at this.
Horribly.
Look at Mount Everest up here.
Aged like milk.
Mount Everest up there. We're going to get into this. 2019-2020, Anthony Davis teams up with LeBron. They go on to be the best team in the West. Anthony Davis and LeBron were both made the All-NBA first team that year, which, fun fact, as I was looking up stuff about this, that was the first time an NBA duo was on the All-NBA first team since 2007. I know John, Benicio, you guys are both avid NBA fans. I want you guys to take a guess. I want to see if you guys get this. Which duo in 2007 from the same team made the All-NBA first team? Real quick here. I want to see if you can get it.
Shaq was off Miami at
Steve
that
Nash
point, right?
and Amari Stoudemire.
Bingo.
Wow.
It was Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire. I did not, when I looked down the list and saw 2007, that was not the one that would have come first to my mind. But nonetheless, Obviously, the season gets shortened a little bit with COVID, but the NBA gets moved into the bubble in Orlando.
That was crazy.
A crazy time.
And then he hit the buzzer beater against
He hit
the
that
Nuggets.
buzzer beater, game 2 of the Western Conference Finals. And look, in his first season with the Lakers, Anthony Davis is an NBA champion.
I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for that
He
championship.
does not get
in
enough credit
general.
for that championship. He was the second best player on that team behind LeBron. And they played a tough Heat team in that championship. That was a really good defensive team, as most Heat teams have now been under the Eric Spoelstra era. And even to reward at that, he got a 5-year, $190 million extension. So look at that. But however, the good times started to sort of come to an end. We come into a little bit of a valley here. Major injuries come into play, a calf injury, a groin injury in the postseason in Game 4 of the first round in 2021 against the Suns. Tried to play Game 6, but that ended his season, and he only plays 75 games from 2020 to 2022. And then the real low becomes in the beginning of the 2022 season when he once again injures his right ankle and has to miss the first 20 games of the season. As we move on, though, he does come back and plays better than ever, averages 25 points a game that year. And the Lakers is the 7 seed. They make the Western Conference Finals that year. Davis playing a big role in that. However, unfortunately, they got swept by the Denver Nuggets. And then even moving on to the next year, he's getting healthy again. He plays 76 games. That's the most he had played in his career in a single season. Look at that. We're getting a healthy Anthony Davis. A guy who we thought might have been a generational talent, might actually be a once-in-a-generational talent. And look at this. This start in 2024, 2025. At one point, he was leading the NBA in scoring. He's now second at 30.2, and he's 8th in rebounds at 10.8. Anthony Davis is finally entering his prime at 31 years old and really might be becoming one of, if not the best power forwards in the NBA.
I would argue that he's been in his prime since his New Orleans days.
Yeah.
He was the best power forward in the world when he played
Yeah.
for New Orleans. He just had no help.
Yeah, we
and
look at it,
awful coaching.
He made the all-defensive first team at 25 years old. He was the 52-point game happened. He was also just 25. He obviously that's one too, but I think for what really could happen is we could see with Anthony Davis, the mountain just keeps going high.
He could win MVP this year
Or
without
he
his
could.
playing.
I think right now he is the 5th shortest odds if we're looking at a Vegas line. But there's also a chance with Anthony Davis. Hopefully he stays healthy, but if not, we could see a little fall off the cliff, unfortunately.
I want to go back to that 2023 run because
Yeah.
that's a run that goes so under. They beat some tough teams. They beat the Suns that
beat the
year.
Suns.
They beat the Warriors that
Yep.
year in the second round, like pretty convincingly
They beat the
too.
Grizzlies.
I think they
Not the
yeah.
Suns.
Oh, it was the Suns in the first round, and then I believe
They lost to the Suns in 20.
No, they lost to the
but they
Nuggets
lost to
in
the Suns 2 years
They
prior.
lost to the Suns in 21.
Yeah, and then
Right.
2 years later they beat the Grizzlies and the Warriors.
yes, I remember they beat. That was a.
The
they
hype
won in
was
6
unreal
too,
for
I
that
believe.
series.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very hyped up series. But that is unfortunately all of the time we have. Obviously, very in-depth discussion on a guy that at times has been the greatest power forward in the NBA with his mountains and his valleys, Anthony Davis. That's going to do it for this episode of Extra Point. Have a good night.